All right, guys, welcome to the Evolution Podcast. Today I have a special guest, Madeline. Now, Madeline has been featured on Forbes, Entrepreneur, and she's an accomplished marketer. And if you're a marketer, listen, this is a conversation that you are going to want to listen to. So, Madeline, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Madeline Zook. I have a very lengthy background in marketing and specifically in B2B marketing. So I do a lot of franchise marketing. My husband and I own four different franchise brands. So we've got anywhere between 10 and 50, depending on how you carve up territory, local service brands that we operate here in the Philly area. And I also have a nonprofit, a whole bunch of kids, a whole bunch of dogs. So
Love it.
definitely living the marketing life.
Love it. So I'm just curious, how'd you get started in the marketing?
So it started in college where I didn't know what I wanted to major in. And my dad and I printed out an entire list of every major there is out there. He started at one end, I started with the other, and we just started crossing shit off. He was like, bad at math, no accounting. Can't do what will be a doctor. And then eventually we narrowed it down to the communications because at the end of the day, I like money. I want to make a lot of money. So you got to work with, a lot of money, but I'm also creative and I like people. And so it seemed like that marketing and advertising, was a really good fit.
Okay. Okay. So what was your experience? Obviously, you didn't like math. Math was not for you. And then you finally got into marketing. Now, what was that experience like as far as you first dabbled in the marketing?
So I started off in the grind, just like a lot of people do. I was at a marketing firm. I was filling coffee. I was setting meetings. I was getting the mail. And eventually, hard work pays off. And I kind of moved up the ranks there. Eventually, I got recruited over to a franchisor. So they are the corporate entity of a franchise, to head up their marketing there, which is where I stayed for about a decade. And during that time, we actually created a whole new brand. We acquired a brand. We went international and then became acquired. So I got to see a lot of how the business and marketing intermixed in terms of acquisitions and things of that nature.
Okay, so I'm very curious. So, just talking about Philly, I remember my first time ever meeting a franchisor, someone who started a franchise, and I believe it was I think it was a Sonic. It was a Sonic franchise, and it was he's a big time poker player, and we were hanging out, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna be starting a Sonic franchise," and he's like, "You want in?" And I was like, "Sure. How much is it?" He's like, "Well, I put it in 3.5 million," and I was like,
Yep.
"Okay, okay, my friend. I don't think that was a franchise that I was thinking of, but so I'm very curious. How do they make money?"
Yes. So obviously Sonic is a huge franchise. The bigger the brand name, the bigger the operations, the bigger the price tag, but you can start franchises for as little as 25,000 to 30,000. So it really depends on the industry, the market, and your franchisor. Traditionally, there are two, or I should say three different ways that franchising works. One is you have your corporate franchisor. So the people that work for Sonic corporate, they control the brand, they have a hiring staff in place that bring on the new franchisees. And then each franchisee is, say, locally owned and operated. So once a franchisee signs on, they own their business, but they're paying to use the support system and the brand. Now, how the franchisor makes money off of that is they charge a royalty percentage, which can fall anywhere between 6 and 9% of your revenue. And so you're paying monthly, weekly, however they have it set up, to continue using their brand name, their support. And of course, there's a bunch of other benefits to buying in. A lot of the times it is much more efficient and a faster return on your investment to buy into a system that's already proven than trying to do an independent. For instance, they've already tested out how much money you need to spend in marketing. They've already tested out, well, if then what? So you're taking away a lot of the risk while you are paying for it. I think, I obviously own a whole bunch of franchise locations and it pays back in dividends moving forward. And you also get a community of entrepreneurs along with it. Other ways that franchisors make money is they can sell master territories. So they sell kind of like a large territory to what would be a mini franchisor, and then they're in charge of finding the franchisees from there. And then they also can have corporate owned stores along with franchisees where they may have The head office or corporate may own a couple locations and get money that way from driving, consumer revenue along with their franchisees.
Interesting. Okay. So now let's say I was looking to get into a franchise, right? 25, 30, let's say even 50,000 for the franchise. How long
Sure.
is it going to take before I actually maybe break even or actually hit a profit?
So it depends on whether you are looking at a seasonal business, an established brand, or an emerging brand. If you're looking at a seasonal business, it's going to take maybe a little longer depending on when you start. So if you buy a mosquito business and you say, I'm signing on in February, well, you don't get customers until, July. You don't spend your marketing until, end of April. So that's going to be a longer break, what we call break even time, because you only have a few short months to make your money. So that might be 2 or 3 seasons, which would be considered years. But if you're going to a, uh, you know, established brand year round, say like home cleaning, usually the typical break even time is anywhere between 4 to 6 months, which is pretty incredible in terms of, starting a business in your area from scratch. Again, that's very industry and area dependent. But then again, if you're looking at an emerging brand, meaning you're going to be one of the first five, one of the first 10 franchisees in that system, there really isn't a brand footprint yet. There's no marketing footprint. You're still working out the kinks in terms of operations that can tend to double, I would say, is a good estimate. So you're looking anywhere from between like a year to 16 months.
Okay. Okay. A year to 16 months. All right. Okay. Now that's interesting. So now let's say, I'm looking for something franchise, right? I'm looking for, obviously, not a lot of people have 3.5 million to go, franchise a Sonic, right? What would you say is a lucrative first time franchise? Like you're in a franchise business, right? You own it. How many franchises do
Yep.
you have?
So we have four different brands.
Okay.
Of those brands, each brand has multiple locations. Uh, Franchisors split up territory differently, and that's how you quantify how many you own per se, if it's not a brick and mortar, because we have service brands. So we have anywhere between 10 and 50.
Okay. 10 and 50. And just a ballpark, what would you say is the, cash flow from the 10 and 50 that you currently have, right?
Yeah. So, like I said, they quantify territory, but uh, based on how you carve it up. But for service brands, which is what we own, a lot of times it's the number of trucks on the road. So, for instance, we'll just call it on the low end, we'll call it, I don't know, 15 locations. We're in the multi millions.
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. Okay. So now, all right. So with a franchising perspective, right? Let's say you franchise like a restaurant location, right? And you,
Hmm.
you have to pay, the royalty to basically use the brand name. Now, as far as staffing goes, I'm assuming you still cover the staff.
Yes. So there is, when you buy into a franchise, you're buying upfront, you're paying a franchise fee, which is non negotiable. It's kind of like a
Uh,
sign on
Well,
bonus
what's the
for the
what's the
franchise.
percentage? What do you say is a percentage of the franchise fee?
The franchise fee is usually just a set number. It's usually not a percentage of what the cost is. So it
Okay.
just depends on what the franchise is. It could be anywhere between 5,000 for a smaller brand to 60,000 for a bigger brand. So they have the franchise fee, and then they have, your estimated cost of investment up front. So what's going to happen is they say the cost to buy in is, let's say, $100,000. 10,000 of that is going to go to your franchise fee. And then the other 90 is gonna split up between your, physical location, maybe it's a buy or a lease, it's gonna be your equipment, it's gonna be your marketing spend. So, they're already estimating how much money you need to be a part of the franchise, that you are going to cover. So, if you come in and say, "I wanna be a franchisee, I only have, you know, $15,000 to start one." Sure, that might cover the franchise fee, but you're not going to be successful because you only now have $5,000 to put into that business. And that is not someone that a franchisor is going to want to do business with. So your qualification to be a franchisee is much more money, even though you're not necessarily paying that to the franchisor. The franchisor is taking a small piece of that and then coaching you on how to spend the rest of it. So yes, you cover marketing You cover your employee training or hiring and retention because you do own that business, but it is a, a spend that you're already expecting to spend and know that you have to spend to be successful.
Okay. Okay. Now, I'm assuming with the, let's say with the fact that you're using another brand's name, there are various marketing guidelines, right?
Correct.
Like for instance, you can't advertise McDonald's and change and just kind of like, but let's say I franchise McDonald's. Can I use a McDonald's? Now I can use a McDonald's logo,
Yes,
but
but there are what's called brand guidelines on how you can do that.
got you. Okay. So now you hit the marketing team. How do you market your franchises?
So, I mean, I think it's pretty standard amongst any industry, any product or service you're in is the bulk of your money is going to digital. You're going to the pay per click, the search engine optimization, the social media spend. How you delegate that spend and the goals in which you attribute to each channel are going to change. And then you're going to layer on things that are industry specific. So right now, service brands, specifically in franchising, direct mail still works really well. So we're then going to layer in direct mail. We're going to layer in the yard signs, maybe some door knocking in there. And then you're able to kind of look at your numbers and because of your previous data or the franchisor data that they're gathering from every location that they have historically over time and growing, am I meeting the correct benchmarks? If I'm not, what's wrong? And if nothing's wrong, then how do I kind of go back to the drawing board to make sure that I can meet those benchmarks that are expected of me at the franchisor level. And I say expected of, and not in a terms of you're going to get in trouble if you don't meet them, but this is what they're saying you should be meeting regularly. And if you're not, let's help you fix it so that you can have a properly estimated, uh, you know, KPIs, which are key performance indicators, which determine your break even, your return on investment, your cost per acquisition. Um, that sort of number, and it kind of can help keep you on track because it's not just you looking at your data, you're actually seeing trends from across your industry, from across your region, from across, the entire nation or world, depending on how big your franchise is.
Well, that's a lot to take in. So what you're saying is,
Yeah.
let's
So we
say,
get a marketing.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the franchisor will provide a marketing strategy. They say, here's your strategy. Here's what you should do. Some people require that you spend in certain channels or a certain amount. Other franchisors recommend it. So they give you a plan, and then your job is to implement that. Now, because I'm a professional marketer, I'm able to tweak things and add things in as needed. But if I'm just like, I'm starting a business, I don't like marketing, they give you that plan, they tell you how to spend it, and a lot of times, they have either people that can help implement it for you or vendor or supplier partners, that can assist as well. For instance, if you hate social media, but your franchise is saying, "You're gonna grow your business X percent if you spend 3,000 in marketing and social media every month." If you hate social media, that's fine because they have a company that you can pay to do it for you. And they know your brand, they know the guidelines. So there's a lot of intricate support there, which make marketing or operations or hiring very streamlined because you have all of that, access to support that you need.
Okay, so now I'm just playing devil's advocate here, right? So let's say I'm a franchisor, right? And I am the owner of
Mhm.
this big brand. Why franchise? Why? Like, let's say I have a big brand. Why would I want to have somebody else use it? Like, what's the benefit to the franchisor?
So typically, if you are a large brand name, let's say Starbucks, you're probably not going to franchise because you're already huge. You have all of your operations are corporate owned, and to go from a very big brand and then bringing on franchisees is a very difficult process because now you're trying to retrofit a business that was built on, one decision making structure,
Hmm.
and you're bringing in a whole bunch of other people that are going to have opinions and spending money and saying, we're relying on you, you're relying on us, and these systems don't work for franchising. So if you're a big brand name, it's very rare you're going to see a large corporation then turn to franchising. Now, if you are a multi-location, say I own 10 pizza shops in the area, they're super successful. You may then think about franchising. One, because you know you've got a great product and a great brand that people are love. Two, you may need capital to continue growing. And three, if you want to, if you even if you have capital, you don't necessarily have the time or the resources or the people to continue expanding it. You know, if you're in New York and you want to open up across the nation, you can't do that by yourself. Um, and in order to do that by yourself, that would be flying, opening, all over the place, and it would leave very little time for any sort of life you may have outside of business. So by franchising, you can then say, all right, I already know the recipes, I know the branding. Now I'm going to bring on people that can go ahead and take this great thing that I've built, help me grow the brand name. And for doing that, I'm also going to take, a percentage of their success, but also 99% of the workload is lifted off of me. So there's a lot of benefits into saying I'm going to expand my brand, the capital, the support. And honestly, franchising is a relationship built model. If you like people, if you want to be in a small knit kind of community, but also stay on that business level, franchising is definitely for you. I like to say when people get into franchising, they usually don't leave because it is a culture of helping people, whether it's your communities, your employees, helping franchise or entrepreneur owners like make their dream come true of business ownership. It's built on a structure of helping one another because in franchising, if one person succeeds, it helps everyone succeed because it's such a royalty based business.
Got you. So let me understand this. I'm trying to understand. So is there like franchise meetings where everybody just meets and like has dinner and lunch and like, hey, I have this store here, I have this location.
Yeah. So there are an abundance of ways that the community gets involved. A couple big ways are there are typically for whatever brand you're in, there's going to be an annual conference or convention. The bigger the brand, the more grand it is. So, if you have a small brand, maybe you're meeting up at, Las Vegas at the Bellagio and having, a networking meeting where they might be unveiling new marketing campaigns. You're getting the chance to talk to other owners. My friend owns a 7-Eleven and they have this huge, convention with thousands and thousands of people. And it's this big event every year. Um, and then on top of that, they're going to layer in uh, maybe community meetups or peer performance groups, which is where they group franchisees that are in a region or near one another so they can chat, they can network because what's working in Texas might not be working in Rhode Island. So now you're able to have group meetups with other franchise owners that are in your brand, in your business, neighboring, so you can discuss, problem solving, what's working, what's not, and have support that way. And of course, the franchisor often will do retreats or vacations or fun things of that nature. On the corporate side, there's always conventions that you can go to, and there's probably one every single week, an expo, a show. So it's a lot of opportunity to meet others and also uh, better yourself in your business through others' experience, which is really helpful.
Got you. Okay. So now is there like a competition where you go, wait, this store did better than the other store, so they get a cookie. This store did that, so they get a slap on the wrist. So is there like a competition between, who's the best producer?
So I would say it's always friendly competition because you're in the same brand and everyone knows that, if so and so's making a lot of money, they're paying a bigger percentage into the franchise, which is then going to probably put it into the business itself and better operations and stuff. So, but however, yeah, there tend to be, best of best awards. I wouldn't say there's like worst of worst awards, but they'll give out funny awards like person who broke the most rules, person who, whatever. So they keep it fun and friendly, but it's definitely um, a nature friendly competition. But also I think it's really great because oftentimes the biggest franchisees, the ones that are one, two, three, four, five at the top of the revenue list, people look to them to be like, how do I get there? Because I have your brand, I have your business, how do I become like you? And oftentimes they're more than willing to share the process, the trials, the tribulations it took to get there. So while there is a lot of friendly competition, I would say, um, a lot of it is just reverted back into mentorship.
Okay. All right. So now this is just out of curiosity. Let's say I'm watching this because franchising is a big business and a lot of people looking into, franchising is, I've even heard about the ATM businesses. I'm very curious about how that works. Um, but what are the challenges that I can expect in my first 3 years of being a franchisee?
Well, yeah, so that's going to be largely dependent again on your industry and the size of the territory you bought. If you're at the good franchisor, they're not going to let you overbuy, which means you, as you pay a franchise fee, you also pay for your territory. Your territory is just designed through like specific software that is built for franchising on qualified households. So that means people that can afford whatever product or service you're going to provide. So, for instance, if you're buying into a pool company, your qualified households, usually it's anywhere between 30,000 up, is only going to be people that have pools, right? So they know that your market is saturated enough to succeed. Um, if you overbuy, then if you overspend, penetrating that market is going to be a lot more costly and a lot longer because it's a big area. So if you have a proper territory, an established brand, I would say your first 3 years, the first thing is going to be business ownership. If
Okay.
you're buying in with your partner or a husband or a wife, a friend, it's going to be a lot of trial and tribulations in terms of delegation. The second is going to be your staff, no matter what the hiring environment is. Um, Getting employees is probably the biggest challenge for any franchise anywhere all the time. It's just it's a people industry, it's tough, but there are solutions. And then I would say patience, because while you do have the book of success in front of you, everybody's journey is going to be different. You're see the other franchisees doing well, or you might be taking a little longer to break even, and it can get frustrating. And you may want to say, well, I bought into the franchise so I didn't have to deal with this. No, you're buying a business and you're not buying a successful up and running, hands-off system. You're building a business. So I guess the better way to say it is you're not buying a business, you're building a business. You're buying into the ability to build a business with support. So remembering that um, those first 3 years, even as you start making money, there's going to be always new obstacles to overcome, and not expected to always be or necessarily ever be easy, because it is still a business, even though it's a streamlined version of one.
Interesting. That. So from what I'm understanding, for the most part, as in with any business, the the mindset plays a very important role,
Yeah.
right? Are
Yes.
you familiar with Alex Hormozy by chance?
I sure am.
Yeah. Okay. So I was watching a podcast that he did probably a month or 2 months ago. And when he started his YouTube channel, he told his YouTube editor, and he was like, "Hey," the guy asked us, what do you expect from this channel?" And he's like, "Well, we'll see how we do in 5 years." Right. And the frame of mind that he comes in is he doesn't expect necessarily to have the biggest podcast in 5 years. He just wants to see progress, just something. Right. And I think a lot of people get into business and you're expecting in 90 days to be super rich. Right. And it's like, and then he mentioned another thing, which is very interesting. And I know I'm kind of yapping on, and I'm going to go into the next question here, which is, he's like, the name of the game is not to win the game, it's to survive the game. And which is,
I'd agree with that.
yeah, yeah, because I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure you have, which is interesting, is you've had moments in your business where you're like the stress, right? It's like
Oh, yeah.
challenges and problems, and you're like, okay, this happened, and you're like, oh, I just got rid of this, and the next thing you know, something else is brewing behind it, which is fascinating, but which segues into me kind of asking this question is to, you have a podcast, right? The art of franchise market. What
Mhm.
what inspired you to get that started?
So when I was at the corporate franchisor level, a lot of the times I would be tasked with making sure that I had the best data, the best vendors, the best processes in place to grow as quickly and efficiently as possible. Now, I'm only, even if I had a huge team of people, we're only one team seeing one brand, and brands really weren't talking to one another. I couldn't call up a competitor and be like, "Hey, what are you doing to get more franchisees? Hey, what are you doing to combat the seasonal dip in leads?" So when I left corporate, I said, my new goal is to connect franchise marketers because there is plenty of consumerism to go around. And the fact of the matter is marketers can span talking about global strategy to how to get more employees in Boise, Idaho in the span of 10-minute meeting. So to be able to have those great marketing professionals out there siloed just seemed like it wasn't really helping the industry. So what we did is we started this podcast where I interview brands, rip the curtain open and say, let's be real here. What's working for you? What's not? You don't have to give me the secret sauce, but let's talk about trends. Let's talk about franchising. What are you seeing in your brand? And over time, we've had, 60, 70 brands on there ranging from brand new pet grooming mobile services to Pizza Hut on there talking about these are what's working, these are what's not, these are our struggles, this is what we need. And we've built this community of franchise marketers that now can pick up the phone and call one another. They can say, "Hey, I want to start, a delivery service for, XYZ. Oh, hey, I want influencers. Let me call so and so up. They were on the podcast too, or, they're in this LinkedIn group." So really, again, it was about connecting because within a franchise community, you have that support. On the franchisor level, it's less so. So to be able to bring in multiple brands is just better for the greater good.
I hate to interrupt the podcast, but let's go ahead and listen to a little words from our sponsor. So today's video is sponsored by Ryzen Results. Now, Ryzen Results is the premier virtual assistant service for small business owners and independent sales reps. So if you're struggling to cold call leads, if you're struggling to generate interest, if you find it in your business right now, you are either, having to man the phones yourself, manage your social media accounts, generate leads, cold call leads, and do all of the menial tasks that you could delegate, even responding to your emails. Listen, here's where Rising Results comes in. Rising Results offers you the virtual assistant that will give you the ability to be able to outsource or delegate that task to somebody can be able to perform it for you for a low cost. Now, Rising Results currently is offering a 7-day free trial. Yes, that means you get a 7-day free trial of a virtual assistant. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you want someone to come into your business and help you, guess what? Click the link in the description or go to riznresults.com to claim your free trial today. And here's the catch. If you don't like it, if after the 7 days up, you don't like it, then you don't pay. You don't pay. So let's go ahead and go back to the podcast with Madeline. Interesting. So you started a podcast, if I'm understanding, to basically create a sense of a community for the most part, right? And
Correct.
you wanted people to be able
Yep.
to, you know, go on YouTube or go on Spotify or go on wherever the podcast is and be like, hey, this is, this is information as far as what ABC franchise is doing. Maybe you can go ahead
Mhm.
and implement it. Okay. So now I'm also very, very curious about your strategy here because you do a lot of advertising for small businesses, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, working with small business owners, this is just personally me, and I have a lot of small business owners to watch me. It's a pain, honestly, because for me, there is a mindset.
Yeah, we're the worst. Friends of them. We are the worst.
Yes, yes. So it's almost as though there's this element of control, right? And I'm saying this, a lot of small business owners have a control freak kind of mentality, right? And it's like, it was funny, it was a week ago. No, actually, no, it's not. I would say a week. This was a personal referral, and I think it was last month. And he was like, yeah, he had what is this business where you ship mobile homes or those big trucks that you see on the highways?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So he had like a mobile home delivery service. So we were on a meeting. It was him, me, and my head of marketing and one of the staff members. And he was like, yeah. So I want to get um, I want to get more people to book with me. And I was like, okay, interesting. So I was like, how many calls are you getting right now? He's like, yeah, well. I'm getting about, my phone. I can't stop my phone ringing. And the head of marketing was like, he just kind of like private message me. He's like, no, everyone says that. That's not it. We would not be having a meeting right now if your phone is ringing every day, every minute. And then we kind of started asking him some
Right.
questions. And one of the things we came about was a solution was Google My Business, right? Get
Mhm.
him a Google My Business ad. And then we're like, hey, let's do a GMB ad, GMB service for you, set you up. And it's like, that's not going to work for me. And I'm like, okay. I was like, all right, let's say hypothetically it does work. Do you have,
Yeah.
can you get an extra staff or somebody else to, in the phones? He's like, no. I was like, okay, well, when people call, they're going to need to call someone. He's like, well, they call me. I was like, well, what about if you're on the phone? Well, then they can wait. And I was like, wow, man, this is a very interesting, so finally at the end of the call, I was like, hey man, unfortunately, I don't think you really know what internet marketing is kind of all about. And you have to be able to work the least because I am not going to call anybody. And, I was like, yeah, so how are you able to get the small businesses that you work with to actually listen to your expertise, your knowledge, and actually be patient?
So I think the first is making sure that you're working with the right people. So you were definitely correct in saying, I don't think that this relationship is going to work out because a lot of the times I think us marketers get blamed for everything under the sun. I'm not getting enough leads. I'm not closing the
Mhm.
leads. They're not good enough. I'm like, well, to your point, like you don't have anyone answering the phones. So no one's going to close if you have a terrible sales funnel. So, that sort of thing. So, making sure you're working with the right partners is instrumental. I think too, it's understanding, yes, this is their baby. This is their business, and you have to listen to them. It is a two-way street. And especially if you're on a grander level and, their business is in Oklahoma and you live in Pennsylvania, they're going to know things about their area that you don't. But your job is to direct them and give them the data to prove it. So you should know your marketing strategy in and out, like the back of your hand, so that they can say, if I spend this, what could I expect in return? And a lot of times, what I say is for people that want to go off script, they want to say, no, I definitely am sponsoring this little league team, and that's how I'm going to get leads. And in your head, you're like, no one's going to call a service because they saw it on a little league banner, that sort of thing is okay. Well, it's your money, it's your business. You go and do that, but you are now responsible for that spend and that data. So if you come back to me and then you say it didn't work, then one, we've had this conversation and the franchise is not responsible for that because you decided to do that. If it does work, that's great. You were right. And we should now look into building that into a strategy in the future. So, putting both the accountability on both of you is very important. And then I think after that is just really educating on the intricacy of why they're spending their hard-earned dollars. So it's not just you need Google because I said you need Google. You have to spend on Facebook because it's popular. It's no, you need 7 to 10 impressions before anyone clicks a link. That means they have to see your brand 7 to 10 times before they even consider buying from you. If that's the case, what are those 7 to 10 impressions going to cost you? If you're using Google, what is the cost per click? If you're using social, what is the cost per impression or cost per 1,000 impressions? And really dig into your data that way so they can understand that I'm not just spending $1,000 in Facebook because it's popular in my area. I'm spending it because I can expect to get this number of impressions. If I get this number of impressions, I can expect to get this number of conversions on my landing page. And from that, I'm going to then be able to sell and close X number of people. So they're really walking them through the pipeline and how the dollars go to numbers that affect their bottom line and not just this is your marketing spend and you need to spend it because I said so.
Now, okay. So this is interesting as far as like the marketing spend perspective. There is still, I would say, in every business, a minimum amount of money you need to spend to be able to actually get result, right? Like, for instance, if you, let's say a startup franchise and you're only spending, $1,000 a month, more than likely, there's a lot of competition out there. So that's not really going to break the barrier. What would you say, in the service businesses that the small businesses that you work with, how much do you usually tell them, hey, let's just ballpark number. Do you usually recommend, hey, is the minimum spend to be able to actually break through, actually get some results?
Yeah, so it depends on your goals, your growth strategy, your industry, and your area. So for instance, um, if you are a new brand in your area, this is your first year, you're going to have to pump a little bit more money than you will in year 5 or year 10 to get those impressions because people have never heard of you before. But also understanding that if you're a small business and you don't have that money to pump in there, um, that's fine. Any amount of marketing money you can get to work for you if it's in the right channel, but you have to aggregate your goals accordingly. So if you're only spending 1,000 instead of 40,000, you cannot expect $40,000 results, right? So you might, if you're spending 1,000, you might get one client every month instead of 400. So definitely making sure your goals match your spend is a big thing. And then I would say in terms of maybe an average business in a typical, area, if you're seasonal, you're gonna spend that upfront. So, like for a mosquito and tick company, you might spend between 30 and 40,000 only in the months of April and June to get that when people are signing on for service, right? And that's all you're gonna spend for the whole year, but it's in one lump sum. If you're in a typical recurring business, product or service, probably I would recommend a couple thousand a month is healthy, in terms of, scalable growth. Now, again, people are probably gonna chirp at me from all different sides that it should be less, it should be more. Again, it can be. It just depends on your industry, and for what we see, I would say putting aside a piece of those profits to then work back in your business, couple thousand, again, it's going to repay in the growth. So I would say couple thousand is probably a good benchmark to start from.
So that couple thousand, is that 1,000, 10,000, 15,000, maybe?
Mm, well, I would say minimum 2,500 upwards to 6,000. I mean, that's on the high end. I would say 2,500 is an average monthly spend for a service location in the franchise world. It's typically a good platform where you're going to get enough data to see conversions and new clients, but it's not a crazy spend that's going to put you necessarily in the red.
Got you. Okay, so now in your portfolio of franchise that you own, what industry are you seeing the best KPI, basically the best performance?
So for my brands, we have a legacy brand that we've had. So we own Made Pro, which is home cleaning. That's our biggest brand. We've had that for 12, going on 12 years now. So they definitely have, that's the moneymaker. Those are the best KPIs. They have the best support structure. Then we have a mid-size brand, which is called Men and Kilts, which is exterior house cleaning. We're still in kind of well, I won't say break even, but like we're still in, it's not huge yet. The support level is average. We're at average size. So it's doing well enough to run on its own. And then we have what I call the twins, which are Closetivity, which is a custom closet business, and Patio Patrol, which is mosquito and tick, that are emerging brands. We were one of the first franchisees to sign on. So they take a lot of work. So they're kind of like the newborns. So their KPIs are almost, I wouldn't say non existent, but very much still in they need money to grow process. Men in Kilts has a good standard, if just business that's going to pretty much run itself. Um, Not quite to the sustainability of, returning a huge profit that we'd like to see yet, but it's on its way. And then Made Pro has, the biggest KPIs, the most data. It's been around the longest with the biggest customer base.
Got you. Okay, so I have two questions here regarding the franchises you have, right? And one is kind of like an interesting question here is the the mosquito and ticks. I believe that's the one that's still kind of still ramping up and is still at that point in which is still
Mhm.
at almost at the break even. Now, if you could, not saying you know the answer here, but if there's one thing that you believe you could make a shift in that would probably get it to hit KPI in the next 3 to 6 months, what do you think that would be?
I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but for closetivity, we need better search engine optimization. We need a cleaner website process, and they really need to tighten up their marketing strategy on the corporate level so that it will trickle down to the franchisees. On the mosquito and tick control side, um, it's hard because we're so reliant on the franchisor that, it's not one or the other. I guess if I could or should, I would delegate all of our money and time and focus onto that brand so it can get there. But right now, franchising provides a lot of work-life balance, being your own boss, making your own schedule. A reason why we did service is because it's recurring business. It's not nights, it's not weekends, which you would see a lot of in the QSR space, quick service restaurant, and other things of that nature. So it does provide us a lot of work-life balance. So while I have a corporate job, my husband is the one that kind of operates daily all of our locations, and we still have family and friends and kids. So our attention and money and everything is spread across all of that. Um, if I wanna get something to, grow quickly and successfully, I have to take from one place and put in the other. So I guess if I had the ability to maybe do that or clone myself, I would do that.
Got you. So I think what you're saying, just to summarize, is just like increase focus attention, right? Because they say what you
Mhm.
focus on tends to expand. Um,
Well, it's a difficult balance when you're in startup mode of, I could hire someone to run this, have it be their sole focus, and just really step on the gas. But if I do that, it's going to push my break even another year. Because if you're paying someone a salary, that's a big chunk of change. So it's a constant battle between when do I get more staff and when or do I not and I, kind of let those profits grow, but it's gonna require more of my time.
I mean, there's a saying is it's risky to take a risk and it's riskier to stay in the same spot.
Mhm.
So I mean,
Yep.
it is an element where taking a risk and hiring that staff. I don't know. It depends on what the financial level is at the franchise that you're thinking of working on. Now, closetivity, I'm just kind of curious about that. How does that work? Is it like you pick, and like, what is the, I guess, the operations? How does, who's the target audience?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different than our regular, or other service, which is like a cleaning or a pest control. This one is it's much more. While it is a service, it's also included in, the product category. So what we're doing is we're going in and taking out. Maybe if you have those wire rack closets, maybe you have a pantry that's kind of makeshift shelves. We take all of that out. Our software can go in and our designers and design a beautiful built-in closets or pantries or whatever, a beautiful built-in system. We then order all of the materials, and then our operators will or installers will go in and install that closet. So it's a much more of like a one-time service. Maybe they get a couple closets at once, but that's how that works. Now it's a higher ticket price than regular home cleaning would be a couple $100. A closet's a couple $1,000. So the thought process, the thought cycle is a lot longer on the marketing and sales end. So a lot more patience needs to be built in. But again, with higher ticket prices come a higher, uh, you know, profits and revenue at a quicker pace. So
Got you. So how does that work? Is it someone they take a picture of the closet, they upload it in software, and then algorithm kind of works it, and then from there, uh, create some
yeah,
parameters?
so someone would, a lead would come in and say, I want, my kid's closet's done. We would send a designer out there. They take the measurements, they can put the measurements in, and then they can say, okay, do you want long hanging? Do you want shelves? Do you want a hamper built in? Then we can add in, the kind of the assets they want. And then the software is going to spit out different designs. We can then, tweak and present to the client. The client's going to select one, and then from there, the software can automatically say, okay, this is the lumber, this is the screws, this is all the hardware you're going to need. We hit order. We have a manufacturing plant that then sends it to our facility, and then our installers take it in a truck to the house and install it.
It sounds that is definitely the life cycle of that is sounds like a couple weeks, a couple months to close because that's an interesting
It
process.
is, and but the client is a higher end client usually, so um, we're not selling to kids in college, they're not gonna pay money to have, their closets redone, but if you're in nicer neighborhoods and every house has a closet, every house has a pantry, if not multiple ones, so the qualified household increases when you have more opportunity inside the home than just one. So while, a maid pro, which is home cleaning, can be recurring, maybe it's every week, maybe it's every 2 weeks, the closet is while it's not recurring, it's similar because everyone has multiple spaces that they can redo, in their home.
Okay. Okay. So this is still very intriguing to me because the business model of coming and redo the whole closet. It's still very fascinating to me. Like my girlfriend has the biggest closet in the house, and I'm like, it's pointless because I'm like, she's like, you just have this one spot, and I'm like, yeah, that's all I need. I don't need the whole house. And she's got like walk-in closets, another closet, and I'm like, well, you don't need all this. But now, I'm just fascinated here. How do you get somebody to become a lead to say, "Hey, I want to fix my closet"? Is it a Facebook ad? Is it how do you get someone to become a lead?
So right now, social media is our biggest lead generator. And I don't say that in terms of they're sending us messages, I want a closet. It's a targeted ad that then goes to a landing page that they convert on. So it is not like an in portal. We're getting all these leads because we posted a picture. So it is a very professionally done targeted ad. The ad, however, what works really well for closets is showing before and afters because everyone can relate to that junk closet, the coat closet, the shoe closet that's a mess. And by implementing, a nicer design, maybe a built in, it provides a much cleaner, more functional space. And so when you're showing a before and after that someone can really relate to, oftentimes it's an easy trigger to pull, especially when you get on the 7 to 10 impressions. By the 10th impression, they're going, I get it. That is my closet. That's something I've been wanting to do. Let me just ask these people because I keep seeing them and it's now top of mind.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. So it's kind of like still kind of putting it there in the forefront. And now just to the mosquito and ticks, is that like marketed via door knocks? Like, people knock on doors?
So for mosquito and tick, is very reliant on direct mail. So
Okay.
in the spring, when you're starting to get rain, when people are starting to start thinking about going outside, opening their pools, getting bugs, you start, like I said, you're spending your 40 to $40,000 in marketing right during those months. So you're saturating their mailbox with mailers don't get bit, dangers of diseases. You're in co-op mailers, which means like the Val packs or the coupon packs. You're doing a lot of yard signs. So when you're at the intersection, you're seeing, do you have your mosquito and tick service set up yet? And it can be door knocking as well. That can be a little bit trickier, especially if you're in neighborhoods or in, your territories, areas that don't allow it, but you can leave, door hangers and stuff like that. So it's definitely a sprint in marketing up front because come June or July or come July or August when mosquitoes are out and present, most people have already taken care of it and have a recurring service.
Huh. That's that's very, very fascinating. Now, how many people do you have in your team as far as brainstorming? You know, hey, let's do this for this market and this brand. Are you doing everything yourself as far as like figuring it out, or do you have a team working with you?
So for our locations, it's just myself, but I also have the support of the home office. Ironically, I used to work at that home office. That was the franchisor I worked at, so I bought into my own franchise. And they have an entire team of, 10 or so people that are on the ground and working on that strategy. So while the franchisee may be doing it on their own or with a small team, they also have the strategy and support of a much larger team on the corporate level.
Well, okay. That's interesting. Okay. Now, I don't want to get too stuck upon the franchise, even though it's very, very fascinating to me. But I want to kind of
Mhm.
talk about the philanthropic work that you do. I mean, says that you were Boston's Woman of the Week for philanthropic award, right? So talk to me, walk me through the process. What makes you get into that mindset of, okay, I want to give, and what gets you to that perspective of donating?
So kind of my life model is I am not at my best unless I'm helping the next person, which I think franchising has been a very great fit for me because it is built on a foundation, like I said, of helping.
Hmm.
That said, I was used to work in Boston, right in the heart. I would travel a lot and I would see a lot of people who are homeless, and I couldn't afford to give them money every single day. But what I did have an abundance of was these extra toiletries that you get from hotels that your grandmother gives you, all of this stuff. I said, what do I do with it? My friends don't need it. I don't want to throw it out. You know what? I'm going to package these soaps and shampoos and razors and stuff up. I'm going to keep them in my purse. And when I see a homeless person, I'm going to offer it to them because with I don't care what happened to them or what their situations are. I don't know what they need in terms of food or money or this, but I can offer them a piece of cleanliness, a piece of well-being. And it was received really, really well. And it started to grow quickly. And then people started to donate money to the point where I was like, okay, this now needs to be legal, so I opened a bank account, and when you open a bank account, then they want the 501(c)(3) paperwork. So
Mhm.
I literally bought a how to open, went through LegalZoom, and went through the step-by-step process of becoming a nonprofit. And, when you have the best intentions in mind, the bricks fall into place. And people are always willing to help. So, later on, I think it was 2016, we got our official we're a nonprofit, and from there it just really blew up. Obviously, I'm good at marketing, terrible at operations. So I was able to market it really well. And, we started getting corporate sponsorships with the Hilton, with Bombas, with Sephora, all wanting to donate and participate. So it really kind of grew organically because people want to help. And I think the niche was really great because I didn't need people's money. I just wanted things that people didn't need to give it to people who needed them. So we get a lot of donations of what are called in-kind donations, which are the toiletries. Um, and now we package them up. We drop them off on a regular basis we have two locations, one in Philly, one in Boston, that drop them off on a regular basis at homeless shelters. And so it kind of, it took on a life of its own, and I would love to be able to spend more time on it. But it's really great knowing that even the corporations that I work with on, a grander scale, that a lot of the times when you work, it's always about the bottom line. It's always about how much money you're making. There's always a piece of people that are willing to help and willing to give back, and to be able to kind of roll that into my life's work has been really, really great. The organization is called Together She Can. And to date, we've gifted over 25,000 hygiene gift bags to those in need.
So if I'm watching this and I want to participate, is there a link? Is there what's the website?
Yeah. You can go into togethershecan.org. You can see the options to send in your donations, to donate money. Sometimes we have, it's been a little different since COVID, but we have volunteer options, program options. So if you'd like to get involved, you can go to togethershecan.org.
TogetherSheCan.org, guys. Definitely go check it out. Now, let's kind of get into the branding aspect of things, right? And I think you're the best person to ask this. How important do you think branding plays a role in a business?
I think that you can have a shitty brand and terrible marketing and grow because your service, product, and customer service, and your ability to keep, growing over time, is there. So you all seen those mom and pop shops that you're like, this is a terrible logo. I would never have this on my business, but their sandwiches are so great. But these people are so nice. So while I think that branding and marketing is not integral to your success, I do believe that it can uh, contribute to a quicker growth, um, a more successful brand on a quicker level. And what I mean by that is if you have a great brand that people like, you don't necessarily have to wait the years and years for people to then say, oh, this, but the service is great. The customer service is awesome. You can provide a, I would say, 100% service product and grow very quickly rather than having have to give 150% at each service or each sale, and grow slowly. So that was a long-winded way of saying while branding is not the end all be all, it certainly can provide a lot of gasoline for your growth and the fire of your business.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna ask a just a little interesting question here, especially in the marketing side of things, right? Because I believe everyone needs to get their name out there, right? So
Mhm.
if I'm marketing, should my focus be to market the brand or to build the brand as I am marketing?
So I think they're two in the same, one in the same, whatever the word is. Because if you are building your brand, that will incorporate marketing. Now, I think the real question is how do you grow a brand after it's already established? And the answer to that is to continually identifying your target audience's needs and wants because they're always evolving. So a brand needs to evolve over time. And what I mean by that is, McDonald's logo does not look the same as it looked when they first started years and years and years ago, but their mission has always been the same. So as long as your company's mission is to the same, whether it's providing a smile with every hamburger or a polished touch on every car cleaning, whatever your mission may be, um, that never should change, but your branding is going to change according to your target consumer. So all of a sudden, if they, you know, like the big shiny whatever. However, trends evolve over time, your brand needs to too. So as you work on your brand, it's going to be an evolving process. It never stops. But in doing so, you're always going to continue marketing that brand, going after your target customers, seeing what they want, seeing what they don't like, providing a service, providing a product. So your brand awareness is going to grow over time and your brand is going to continually grow as well. So I guess the answer to that is through marketing, your brand you're always going to be working on your brand. Otherwise, you won't be marketing well.
Okay. 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 Now, this just kind of segues into this as far as the branding and the marketing side of things. Where do you think the traditional advertising is going to be in the next 10 to 15 years, especially now that the rise of digital advertising? And, for instance, 15, 20 years ago, you could go door knocks. You could just go to neighborhoods and knock on doors and say, hey, listen, I'm here to, I'm in, like the other day, we had a guy knock, it was so funny. He knocked on the door and it was because I used to do door to door sales. And I'm like, I know the lingo. And he knocked on the door and he was like,
Mhm.
hey, I was just in a neighborhood. We helped your neighbor that across the street. I can't remember what her name was. We helped her fix her windows, and I was just checking in to see if something you're looking for, something you're looking to do. And I was like, so for me, I was like, wow, this is just a good spiel. The way he kind of did it. It's like this guy is actually practiced. And I was like, yeah, I don't know who that is. I don't know my neighbors too well. So I was kind of a little far away, but I'm not looking for windows. And it just kind of made me think, right? Do you think traditional advertising in the next 5 to 10 years, like, the door to door, the direct mail, do you think that's still going to be a thing or do you think it's going to be replaced by digital advertising?
It's already replacing digital advertising. I think that it will never fully go away, because kind of things evolve and come back to what they were. Think of fashion, for instance, things that were so out, or so in 10 years ago or out now are starting to come back. So I think it will be a revolving door. I think we are going to see the majority of traditional spend be put into digital. That's where people are. That's more trackable. Um, but I also think that it's going to also be automated a lot, whether it's through AI, through different sorts of software, so that over time, as that grows and takes over the majority of company spends, the more human physical feel and touch is going to start to be unique and start to be what people want. So then we're going to start seeing more direct mailers come into place, more door knocking because most people are going to eventually revert fully digital. Then eventually it'll kind of come full circle and, the popularity will eat itself like a snake, if you will.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, Now, just this is an interesting phase here. Next series of questions I'm going to be asking you. I call them the series of dumb questions, or more or less the fun questions for the most part, right? To keep it lighthearted here. So, if you could brand a fragrance for cats, right? What would you name it?
Listen, this is a big question because I take branding and naming very, very
Uh
seriously.
huh.
But off the so it's a fragrance that cats would wear.
Yeah.
uh, For real. For for the real cats fur.
For real, for real. I mean, for real. Because this is what's interesting is Americans love their pets sometimes more than their kids, right? So, which means,
Oh yeah.
you could be saying for real, and next, someone's actually Googling to see if they could get that fragrance with your cat. I know a gal that spent, she's a first time getting a cat, and she spent $6,000 on it and spent another 3,000 on another cat. And I was like, well, I am in the wrong business. I, I was like, I'm in the wrong business. I was like, 6 grand for a cat. And the other cat, she was like, it was an upsell, which is very interesting because apparently I don't know, it was a shelter, wherever she got it. They were like, yeah, well, the cat, the has a sibling, whatever, they're friends, so
Oh yeah.
it's gonna be completely terrible to separate them, so they come as a package deal. And then she paid an extra 3 grand. I was like, oh my God. I want to actually now go
Yeah.
in a pet business and just upsell and be like, hey, well, this cat's here. They all go to the same school. So all 12 of them.
Yep. It happened to me. I mean, it wasn't 3 grand. It was like $300, and I want my dog, and the only one left in the shelter was his brother. So then we ended up buying that one too.
And that's a decent upsell. Now, the second question here is, if you had to market
Oh god.
ice to Eskimos, okay, what unique selling point would you emphasize?
So just like not any ice, like my specific
Yep.
ice.
Yep. You're branded for real ice.
For real ice. It would be it would be something about not having to go out and get it yourself. We're removing the frostbite. We're removing the dangers of, the chemicals or the trash that's found in everyday ice. We're delivering it right to your door. It's the best out there, and you can use it not only in one ways for your this is so like stereotypical, whatever, on your water, but you can also use it for snowmen, that sort of thing. So I would go into all the benefits that we provide, even though it's probably the same
Got
ice.
got got you. Okay, so anyone selling ice Eskimos, that's it right there. So this has been very interesting. Your last two answers were phenomenal. So as we wrap up here, anything you want to say, anything you want to tell the audience, if you want to join a franchise, coaching, anything like that.
I would say you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Madeline Zook. Uh, I am happy to talk all things franchising. And no matter what your business is, no matter how much money you have to spend, you have to remember that you need marketing to grow. Without it, you will not grow. So when you're thinking about inserting money into your business, or you need to cut costs, a lot of people cut marketing first because they think it's not needed. Uh, don't do that. Always protect your marketing and your marketing spend, because that is the hub of where your business grows.
Gotcha. No, that's a very good pointer, guys. Listen, I did it to say I made the same mistake as well. When we first started, we had a very high marketing budget, and I, just like you, I'm very good at the marketing. I like the marketing. For me, it's kind of a weird thing because it's like a creativity aspect that comes into it. And it's like, you like the fun and the thrill of things, right? And which is interesting also about marketers is we have a shiny object syndrome, right? It's like, ooh,
Oh
oh yeah,
yeah.
it's a shiny object syndrome. So for that, I hired a director of operations, and her job, literally, when I hired her, was like, your job is to make sure that I don't start anything. And
Sorry, my
and
sorry, my
she
life.
was like, so, every time we have meetings, she's like, yeah, Emmanuel, have you finished your last project? I was like, well, she's like, you're getting bored, just keep doing it. But the question that I'm pretty much segueing into here as far as the marketing side of things. I kind of lost my trade of thought there. But when it comes to marketing, guys, spend the money, invest in it, but also make sure that you actually get a good performance on whatever you're marketing, right? Don't just throw money into something. And you mentioned the keyword, which is the target audience, right? Which I think most people miss that. There was an ad that, there was a certain sponsorship that happened a few weeks ago that cost a specific company about a few $1 billion. Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone is aware of that company. And right.
Yep.
That was an interesting message to audience deal. So it just as we wrap
Yep.
up here, what are key things that I think you think people should pay attention to when identifying your target audience?
I think when you're identifying your target audience, the first thing is to think of price. Who can afford you? The answer, even if the answer is everybody, the you have to limit it from there. So if the answer is everyone can afford me, okay, but then who do you want to buy your product? I talk to companies a lot about this when they say, "Oh, I want to advertise on TikTok," and I say, "Okay, well, you're selling a generator service. Do you think that the majority audience on TikTok is looking to buy a generator? They think just because it's hot and trendy that they should be on it. The ideal is they're not. The young people, the teens that are using it on a regular basis are not in the market to go on TikTok to buy a generator. Sure, you can use a portion of your budget and your time to be on it for brand awareness and for fun, but that's not where the priority marketing spend should be. So, thinking about who can afford you or who you want to buy is the biggest thing. The second is identify what they need and what they want. What is their pain point? How do you fix it? And then anything outside of that is, an added bonus if you can, contribute to that somewhere. And then the third I would say is timing. Understand, how long it takes for someone to come into your sales funnel and then purchase. For instance, if someone's thinking about a deck or a home, a big garage build out, that's a big purchase that they're probably going to save up for. They're going to think a lot about it. But when they're ready and you want to be there. So understand the sales process where someone, wants a coffee, they're going to want it now. So you need to probably be advertising um, you know, whatever. You need to understand that thought cycle and purchase cycle is much shorter. So you want to, take that into account as well. So I would say cost, you know, and timing and, those needs and wants are the most important 3 points.
Perfect. Okay. I love it. All right, guys. Well, the link is going to be in the description to get a hold of Madeline. And also there's also going to be a link as well to get at shecan.org. So just go ahead and, donate whatever you can. Obviously it goes towards a good cause. And Madeline, it was an absolute pleasure having you as a guest. And I could say so far of all the episodes I've done, you gave the best answers.
You know what? If you see "for real" on the shelves or a slogan for something, it was your girl. Thank you so much for having me. This was really, really
Absolutely.